It's funny because we haven't delved too deeply into it. There's so much out there around AI, and we haven't. Our school committee hasn't created an AI policy as yet. But for me, I'm an avid user of AI. I actually take the time to use it, and I think that in terms of the system and schools, we had a guest speaker who came last year at a convocation and talked to teachers about using it to differentiate lessons, using it to write lesson plans, using it for different things. And we're sharing all these podcasts. And for me, it's an instructional tool. It's a communication tool. And more so than that, it's a tool. Like at the end of the day, the word that sticks is tool, right? And it's how you use it. It's just like a hammer. Hammers can be used in different ways. And I feel like it's not to replace, but to reinforce.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm joined in by Dr. Ericilda Xiomara Herman, Dr. Z, Superintendent of Amherst-Pelham Regional Public Schools in Massachusetts, known for her collaborative and equity-driven leadership. From the US Virgin Islands to New England, Dr. Z brings a deep belief in listening, inclusion, and coherence across systems. Today, we will explore AI from a leadership lens and what it means to use technology not for efficiency, but for trust building and community alignment. Thank you, Dr. Z, for being here with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So are we. And before we jump into this, right, like I think there are two questions which I'm going to ask you. The first
Okay.
one is, what drew you to education in the first place? What was the early motivation that, made you be here today? And from there itself, the next question is, when you were a child, you thought what schools were, which is completely different than what it is right now. So how has that perception changed?
Oh man. So what drew me to education? So I was raised by an educator. And you would think that most people say, oh, I taught my dogs and I wanted to be a teacher. That I actually wanted to be like a medical doctor, honestly. But I always knew I wanted to help children. And so life just in its journey drew me to education. 2 years in college, I had to return back home. And when I returned home, I applied all over and I actually ended up teaching in a small Catholic school, third grade, 28 third graders, 19 years old. And from the first day I stepped into the classroom, I fell in love with it. And if I had to say, when you were a child and you're sitting in the desk and you're learning from your teachers, you really don't have the perspective of what happens on the back end of things. So I think if I had to tell my younger self now, it would be to give your teacher some grace, especially when you're sitting in a lesson and you feel like things could be a little bit different. Give her some grace or give him some grace because it takes time to plan that lesson. And sometimes, lessons take hold and take legs of their own. And as a teacher, you're in the middle of it trying to be flexible and pivot with it. And the students are like, what's happening here? So I would tell my younger self to give your teacher some grace.
Absolutely. A very good advice. I think sometimes, as all children should know, I think one of the best things you can do as a child is to teach other kids because you get a
Yes.
perspective.
Yes, it is. And I think that children learn not just from teachers, but from their peers. And they learn more so because they speak the same language. I know we all may speak English or Spanish or different languages, but how they relate, to each other is a whole different language. And so they catch on a lot quicker from each other, from their peers.
100%. That's why I think hence the schools are important because it's a form of a community, and we are social beings, so we need community. It's not like we can live in silos and do as per we please. We need to live in a community, and that's what our tribe is.
Right. And I think once you find your tribe, it's just kind of sitting within there and knowing your role, right? And I think, not I think, I know that the one thing about schools is that we teach our children how to to retain the content, but
Yeah.
then we also have where we teach our children how to be a part of that tribe. How do you get along? How do you just move? How do you push forward? And how do you contribute? And so that's important, like very important. So once you're a part of the tribe, how do you make sure that the tribe flourishes and moves forward? Kind of like what you're doing.
We love to get leaders together. It's a form of a factor which we enjoy. I think even the podcast, the reason why we started it, and we've done over 150 odd podcasts right now. So
Awesome.
it was just to hear everyone's perspective. And this is where I'm going to come to the next place, right? Because your journey has been super amazing from a paraprofessional to superintendent across different communities. What's the leadership thought process that's remained constant? What do you see?
I would have to say the one thing that has helped me to be grounded in my journey is I do it for the children. Like, as long as I know, I think about all of the educators that, whether they knew it or not, made an impact on me and allowed me, regardless of what life held in front of me, to continue to move forward in a vein that I am able to be where I am today. I think about the classroom teacher who told me you can do better. I think about the classroom teacher who told me you talk too much. I think about the principal when I was a para educator who gave me opportunities to teach, but then also gave me opportunities to train others. I think about the superintendent who had me in the room just to be a thought partner, even though I was just a director or even when I was a program manager. So I think about the fact that in each one of those lens or each one of those opportunities, I was a learner from a student to a paraeducator. And so for me, what keeps me grounded is if I do this for the children, if I keep the learner at the core of what I do, I'm not going to always get it right. But if I know what I'm grounded in, I will continue to move forward. And so I think humility and reflection are two key values that I hold with me.
I couldn't agree with the learner at the core because I think almost all educators that we have spoken to, majority of them have that mindset where they have to put the students' needs before anything else that comes across.
It's important. It's very important. And um, when you're sitting like as removed as I may be from the classroom, that's why I always try to find time to get into the schools and put my, it's kind of like, centering myself in the soil. You kind of get dragged into all of the adult things and the operational things, but you have to remember that at the end of what you do, when you sign a paper, you don't check an email, the decision that you make, it impacts children. And so if you forget that, then you lose why you're doing this. It's
And
really important.
I 100% agree. And I think that's what happens in decision making on day-to-day basis, right? That's what guides you for your, and this is where it comes down to how do you look at from day to day? How do you look at from an equity, transparency, listening? Because I know your district's a little bit, it has resistance, it has a bunch of things that takes place. So how do you look at from a decision making perspective?
Oh man. So equity is not equal.
Yeah.
And as long as I always remember that you have to think about what the situation calls for and what is needed. Transparency, sometimes individuals don't realize how transparent I am. Like I feel like to make the best decisions or to understand decisions, you have to know some of the why. In these roles, you can't tell everyone everything, but you give them what they need to know so that they understand enough about what's happening. And when we talk about listening, it's hard for me to determine what you need if I'm talking over you or if I'm not actively like trying to determine where you're coming from. And so for me to get to the point of equity, which is giving an individual what they need to be successful, I also need to have that clear information. I need to hear what's happening. And then more so than that, I need to be able to translate that in a way and create that in a way that everyone benefits. And so sometimes it takes me a while to make a decision because I walk through that process. Often decisions require me to hear from others. It being new in the district, well, not new, but a year in, I've had to learn and hear the historical facts of the why. And even though it may not often make sense to me, it makes sense to the culture and to the system. So those are the key things that help me to walk through the day to day, especially with decisions, and then making sure that whatever I do, I understand the impact to children and the impact to the system.
Yeah, I think keeping a full worldwide view about from culture to students to teachers to everyone important in that decision is important. And that's
Yeah.
And from that coming to AI, right? Because I think that's the big elephant in the room. Everyone's discussing it. The kids are using it.
Yes.
How do you think it from an instructional tool, or how do you look at from your school's perspective? Do you look at from a communication? Do you look at from a system level decision making? Do you look at okay, I'm going to break it down into two parts. I'm going to break it
Okay.
down
I'm
into
here with you.
and it just came to me. So it's on the one is the on the policy side, on the staff and the teachers side, because there's so many tools and companies on that. And then one is on the student side, which is the federal conversation which is happening of teaching kids AI literacy. So let's first delve into the teachers and the adults and the policy side, and then we'll go to the kids because teachers need to know how to use it, staff needs to know how to use it or not to use it. So where do you guys stand? How are you thinking about it?
So it's funny because we haven't delved too deeply into. There's so much out there around AI, and we haven't. Our school committee hasn't created an AI policy as yet. But for me, I'm an avid user of AI. I actually take the time to use it, and I think that in terms of the system and schools, we had a guest speaker who came last year at a convocation and talked to teachers about using it to differentiate lessons, using it to write lesson plans, using it for different things. And we're sharing all these podcasts. And for me, it's an instructional tool, it's a communication tool, and more so than that, it's a tool. Like at the end of the day, the word that sticks is tool, right? And it's how you use it. It's just like a hammer.
Yeah.
Hammers can be used in different ways. And I feel like it's not to replace, but to reinforce. And so for me, the expectation is like our instructional staff, our teachers. I sat down with my assistant and with my HR director, and I said, "Hey, this is how I use this tool. I put all of my thoughts. I write out everything in a Word document, and then I might put it in and say, hey." Check the tone. Am I clear here? And so we've gone through that in terms of how we use it. On the student side, as a teacher, I learned that you're going to learn from your students, but you also have to be ready to teach them and to embrace it. And students today have access to information a lot quicker than we did growing up. And for me, it's not the same sit and get in a classroom. So now we have to teach them how to be, we used to say, good digital citizens, which now includes a tool that can help them garner information, that can help them write papers. So it's to teach them how to use that tool efficiently so that they don't lose who they are in the work. That's the key things that I think about it. When we think about it on the policy side and idea generating, how do we move things forward? That's one way. But I feel like on both sides, it's how do we embrace it? And how do we show our students that this tool needs to be used in a way that you still are the author of your work? You're still efficient with it.
And that comes down to the ethics, right? Like having an ethical conversation with the students. And even because you said tool, and I'm going to use that word a lot more,
Mhm.
it's like when calculators came, right? Like everyone was like,
Right, right.
so the assessments changed. The way we would judge kids before calculators and after that, the way we assess them would change. So how do we have you had a conversation on how to bring ethics in the classroom? And how do you look at it from a perspective of changing the assessment or like asking your teachers to make it AI proof, if I have to say that?
So we haven't had it yet, but I do think that one of the key things that actually makes it kind of I've been keeping up with the national conversations. And I've had conversations with different individuals, like in my office and different teachers around. And I've also seen like teachers have had lessons with students around the use of AI in the classroom. And the deeper conversation is plagiarism
Yeah.
and teaching them the fact that like I've seen where one teacher has taught about how plagiarism has progressed, right? So it went from you used to take the encyclopedia and write the whole article out on paper to now asking ChatGPT to write your paper for you is a form of plagiarism because it's not your authentic work. So in terms of the ethics of it, I think that the deeper conversation that's going to come from it is we can't hide from this now. We have it. So it's kind of the same thing as how we did over the years when the internet came forth and Wikipedia was there, teaching students valuable sources that are available to them and how do you use those sources is really where we're going to have to delve into the conversation. And I've seen teachers do that. And so that to me is the critical step. What we need to do now, especially in my district, is pull together all of our teachers and create that guideline. And well, how do we want that to look? And what do we want that work to be? And that's going to be the foundation of our ethics conversation.
That's interesting how you said it. I think it's very important to have that conversation going. Since some of your teachers are already doing that, that's kudos to them.
I
And
mean, they it's valuable because they understand that we are preparing citizens for the world. So in that is like, what do our children need? And that's the value of having strong teachers who are willing to develop themselves and then share that information with others as well.
yeah, and when you mentioned sharing the information, right? Like, and you need to share it with parents, you need to share it with committees, and there's like board members and even a public voice that comes into place. How do you introduce this change without causing resistance or like figuring it out, which works smoothly for you?
So it's funny because one of someone in my office came to me and they said, Dr. Z, individuals have said that you they think that some of your work is AI generated. And I was like, oh, it's not AI generated, it's AI edited. Right. And so they were like, what? Like they watched me, like, what do you mean? So I told them, like, when I came into Amherst, I had a bumpy start. And there's not a lot that can happen whenever there's change, there's discomfort. And so for me, one of the things that became known or relevant to me was how I am received. And so for me, I use it as a tone checker very often. And in terms of communicating, I actually told my my media person that we actually need to do as a part of one of my monthly videos I'm going to do this year, how to use AI. How do we use individual? So I have Grammarly. I have the paid subscription to Grammarly. I have the paid subscription to ChatGPT. I recently paid for Claude. So like I have multiple, generators that I use for different things. And it's not about replacing, like I said, replacing. It's about reinforcing. And for me, it's about editing. It's the fact that because of the difference in cultures, I may miss a nuance in my writing that to me seems fine, but to someone else may be received negatively. So it's all about how do we use that. And so how do we do that is, one, I go back to my transparency and information, sharing the whys, the hows, and receiving, listening. Having listening sessions with parents, understanding where they're coming from, and knowing that there's going to be both sides of the fence, right? Where both sides of individuals, there's a fors and there's always against, and you just have to walk the middle of why it's important, or how do we work from there, and how do we use this tool? And that's really where I am in terms of introducing new things. So we're going to start off with like a little video talking about how we use it. I'm going to talk about how I use it. And then, have a listening session to garner like feedback around what's happening, how do we move forward with it? And that kind of provides opportunities for all the voices to be heard. And from there, a level of information so they understand where we're coming from.
I think that's a smart move for you to be out there in the open and share your message directly from yourself rather than having it painted through different voices.
Thank you. It's better. I believe in telling your narrative. And if you can proactively tell your narrative, that's fine. Sometimes you just have to react because others, you never know where it's going to come from. But I always feel in just sharing your narrative and knowing your why.
Exactly. Knowing your why. And this brings me to where when people look back from years, right, and they look at leadership styles. And this is the reason why I'm saying that, because you said putting your narrative out there first and understanding your whys. What's that one shift that you're looking to make possible as as a superintendent?
Oh, so the one shift. Oh, that's a great question. So I learned about different leadership styles and I was like, I'm a servant leader. I am here to serve and get this done. And I'm rooted in I am a servant leader. Like I still believe that I am here to serve. I'm here to listen. I'm here to engage. the one thing that I would say is that leadership styles ebb and flow. But for me, if I had to think about the one thing that I needed to change is culture. I've learned that you can be a systems change agent. You can be a strong instructional leader. You can be the best servant leader. You can be all about transformation. But if the culture that you are working in, if the culture that your system is rooted in and is operating through is not in a place that is ready for the effects, or is in a place that it can accept it, or it's kind of like when you farm, you have to have that healthy soil. You have to till the soil. Like culture to me is like that soil. You have to till the soil. You have to make sure that it's nutrient rich. It's ready for when you plant that seed for everything to grow and nourish. And the system is that seed that is rooted in that culture. So for me, I have learned, and I'm going to learn. I want to be a cultural change agent, right? How do we till that soil so that the system can flourish and grow?
That's a lovely answer. And in the sense that, and I'm going to go into culture a little bit more because I think culture is super relevant when we have a discussion about schools and larger systems, right? So, also, it's been a year for you. So, what changes that have you done that created that kind of a culture in your school system, in your district?
I have to say that it's very hard for me to be like, oh, this. My team says, oh, we've done a lot. And I'm like, like, because I'm not zoned in on specific things. But the one thing that I have noticed is just in how we engage with each other. And I think that for me, it started with me.
Yeah.
It started with me as the leader reflecting on how did I get here? What is that 10% of the steps that caused me to be here? And so that self-reflection is often what drives it. And from there, I'm able to see that individuals are having deeper conversations about the whys and the hows. They're talking about what possible changes can come forth. They're open to new policies. They're open to new procedures. It's all about how do we do it together. And so for me, I would say like the adult view in the buy-in has kind of shifted to now where the conversation is surrounding how do we get this to be in alignment. And so that to me is a big change. Everyone else may not see that as a big change, but the change of the conversation to where now we are all having it in the same tone, in the same voice, in the same tandem and rhythm, where we're speaking about the same thing and we're walking out of the room feeling like we were all heard. That's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's mostly about it. Thank you so much for giving us your time. It's been absolutely insightful to do this podcast with you.
Thank you for inviting me, and I had a great time. And I'm always welcome and open to share.
Thanks a lot.